There is a particular kind of child who feels everything at full volume. Not the child who cries loudly, not the one who throws tantrums or demands attention or makes their presence impossible to ignore. The quieter kind, the one sitting at the edge of the room, watching, taking in everything, the tension underneath the laughter, the meaning behind the silence, the specific weight of a pause that arrived in the middle of a sentence that never got finished. This child notices what adults hope no one noticed. They feel the argument that didn't happen out loud. They sense the mood shift before anyone else in the room has registered that something changed. They walk into a space and absorb its emotional atmosphere the way skin absorbs weather, completely, involuntarily, with no ability to simply decide not to. And the adults around them, who love them, look at this child and do not always know what they are seeing. Too sensitive, they say, sometimes gently, sometimes with a frustration they cannot entirely hide. Too intense, too dramatic, too much. And the child, who cannot explain that this is not a choice, that the volume has always been this high and they do not have a dial, begins to understand in the wordless way that children understand the most important things, that there is something about them that does not quite fit the room, that the way they experience the world is somehow wrong. If you were that child, or if you are raising one right now, then stay with me, because what I am going to share in the second half of this changes not just how you understand the sensitivity, it changes what you understand it to be. Before we go further, tell me in the comments, were you the sensitive child in your family, or are you the parent watching one, wondering how to reach them? I think more people carry this quietly than anyone admits. And stay until the end, because the reframe that's coming is the one most people never hear. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel grew up in a family that was, by most measures, a functioning one. His father was practical and capable, a man who solved problems efficiently and moved through the world with a kind of settled confidence that Daniel studied and could not reproduce. His mother was warm but busy, managing the logistics of a full household with the particular competence of someone who had learned to keep moving. They were not unkind people, but they were not sensitive people, and Daniel was. From very early, he experienced the world at a frequency the rest of his family did not seem to receive. The scratchy collar of a school uniform that no one else mentioned was unbearable to him. A raised voice 2 rooms away landed in his chest like a stone dropped in still water, the ripples spreading long after everyone else had moved on. The atmosphere of a room after an argument, even a resolved one, clung to him for hours. He felt things first, longest, and deepest. And he tried, with the particular sincerity of a child who wants desperately to be understood, to share what he was experiencing. He was 7 when he first learned not to. He had come home from school holding something. Not an object, but a feeling. A small social fracture with a friend, the kind that adults would call minor and children live inside as if it is the whole world. He sat across from his father at the kitchen table and tried to explain it, and he watched his father's face move through the sequence he would come to know very well. Patience, then mild confusion, then a kind of gentle impatience that was not unkind but was very clear. It's fine. You're fine. Don't let things get to you like this. The words were meant to help. They arrived as a verdict. The way you experience things is the problem. So Daniel learned to manage the distance between what he felt and what he showed. He became fluent in the performance of fine. He smiled at the right moments. He stopped bringing the interior world to the table because the table did not know what to do with it. But the interior world did not stop. It simply went underground. And what grew in that underground space? The years of unfelt feelings and unnamed experiences, and the chronic work of translating himself into a language the household could receive. That was what no one had prepared him for. Not the sensitivity itself, the loneliness of carrying it alone, inside a family that loved him and could not reach him. Aron found that approximately 15 to 20% of the population is born with a nervous system that processes sensory and emotional information more deeply than others, not more emotionally, more thoroughly. The HSP brain does not simply register experience and move on. It pauses, it reflects, it processes input through more layers, makes more connections, notices more nuance. This is not a disorder, it is not fragility. It is, in Aron's words, a trait, a genuine neurological difference in the depth at which information is processed. But here is what the research showed about what happens to highly sensitive children specifically. And this is the part that matters. The trait itself is not the determining factor in how a sensitive child fares. The environment is. Aron and subsequent researchers, including psychologist Thomas Boyce, found that highly sensitive children are what Boyce called orchids, as opposed to the dandelions, the children who grow reasonably well in almost any environment. Orchids, given the right conditions, produce something extraordinary. Given the wrong ones, they struggle in ways that dandelions simply do not. The right conditions are specific, not permissiveness, not the removal of all difficulty. Something more precise than that. Attunement, the experience of being seen accurately, not managed, not fixed, not redirected toward more convenient emotions, but genuinely witnessed in the actual texture of what they are experiencing. A sensitive child who is met with attunement does not become less sensitive. They become securely sensitive. They develop the internal architecture to hold the depth of what they feel without being dismantled by it. A sensitive child who is met repeatedly with the message that their experience is too much, that the volume needs to come down, that the feelings are disproportionate, that the correct response to the world is something more contained. That child does not become less sensitive either. They become a sensitive person who has learned to be ashamed of it. And that shame does something specific and lasting. It does not eliminate the sensitivity, it drives it inward. It turns what could have been a gift into a secret. And it leaves the adult walking around in the world feeling everything at full volume, with no language to explain it and no permission to admit that the dial was always this high. But here is the paradox buried inside all of this, the one that changes everything when you finally see it clearly. The highly sensitive child is not, as the family often experiences them, a burden, a complication, a child who needs to be managed differently and apologized for at family gatherings. They are the child who is most accurately reading the room. Think about that. The tension the adults are performing their way around. The sensitive child felt it an hour ago. The grief that no one in the family has named. The sensitive child has been sitting inside it, alone, wondering why everyone else seems fine. The love that is real but is never quite spoken. The sensitive child carries it with a depth and a loyalty that the adults who feel it cannot fully access. The sensitivity is not the problem. It is the most honest thing in the house. And the families who learn, sometimes late, sometimes imperfectly, to stop trying to turn the volume down and instead learn to sit with a child who simply receives life more fully than most people can. Those families do not become overwhelmed by the sensitivity. They are made more truthful by it. There is a biological dimension to this that makes the family's response even more important than it might initially seem. The neuroscientist Jaak Panksepp showed that the mammalian brain's emotional systems, the circuits governing fear, play, connection, and grief, are not learned. They are wired in from birth, and for the highly sensitive child, these systems run at a higher baseline activation. Not pathologically, but genuinely, constitutionally, from the beginning. What this means practically is that when a sensitive child is repeatedly told that their emotional experience is too much, the brain does not simply store a memory of that message. It integrates it into the child's developing sense of self. The message, "Your inner world is a problem," becomes a structural belief, invisible, automatic, running underneath everything. And that belief follows the child into adulthood with a faithfulness that is almost architectural. They fawn in conflict because they learned, very early, that taking up too much emotional space was dangerous. They catastrophize because a nervous system trained for hypervigilance does not know how to read ordinary difficulty as ordinary. They struggle to trust their own perceptions because for years, the people they trusted most looked at their perceptions and said, "That's not right, you're overreacting." They learn, most painfully of all, to doubt the most honest thing about themselves. But here too, the research offers something real. The sensitive nervous system that was shaped toward shame and self-doubt is the same nervous system that responds most powerfully to genuine attunement. The orchid, given the right conditions, does not simply survive. It flourishes in a way the dandelion cannot. New relationships, new communities, moments, small and consistent and real, of being seen without apology. These do not erase the early wiring, but they build alongside it, slowly and genuinely, until the sensitivity no longer feels like the thing that made you too much for the room. It becomes the thing that makes you irreplaceable in it. But before any of that can settle, before the sensitive person can begin to receive what was always possible, there is grief that needs room first. Grief for the child who sat at the table full of family and felt utterly alone in the depth of what they were experiencing. Grief for all the feelings that were felt completely and expressed carefully and still met with the patience that was really just a more polite version of, "Can you be less?" Grief for the version of yourself that learned to perform ordinariness so convincingly that even the people closest to you stopped knowing what was actually happening inside you. Grief for the gift that was never named as one, because that is what was lost, underneath the management and the shame and the years of turning yourself down to a volume the room could tolerate. Not the sensitivity itself. That survived. It always survives. What was lost was the experience of being known for it, of someone sitting across from you and saying, not with frustration, not with loving exasperation, but with genuine recognition, "I see what you are, and it is not too much. It is extraordinary. That grief is real. It is not self-pity. It is the accurate acknowledgement of something that mattered and was not honored. And it deserves to be felt, not managed, not abbreviated, not immediately turned into a lesson. just felt. If you are the person this describes, the one who has always felt the room more deeply than anyone knew, who learned to keep that depth private, who has spent years wondering why ordinary life sometimes feels so much more effortful than it seems to be for everyone else, hear this. You are not too much. The room was not enough, and those are not the same thing. You are allowed to stop apologizing for the depth of what you feel. You are allowed to find the people. They exist, they are looking for you too, who do not need you to be quieter in order to feel comfortable. You are allowed to name the sensitivity not as the thing you have learned to manage, but as the thing that has always made you most distinctly yourself. The child who felt everything was not broken. They were awake in a way that the world does not always know how to hold, but the world needs people who are awake. More than it knows, more than it says, and you are always one of them.